20th of January. Councillor Jones.
Thanks, Mayor. It gives me pleasure to present the minutes of the Policy Committee of the 20th of January and move for their adoption.
Thank you. Is that seconded, please? Thank you. Page 31. Councillor Back.
Mr. Mayor, looking at the various papers attached to the report, including the revenue budget and reserves, I cannot but notice two factors. If the tax base increases as is perceived on that report, and if the operational underspend was not put in the budget as at present, but used to alleviate the tax increase proposed would not be necessary. Was that ever considered? And why was it not considered in the interest of the people of Dorchester?
Do you want to reply now, Councillor Jones?
No, I've got a statement.
Yes. Would it be a good idea to make your statement?
Yes, in that case I will. I'm going to refer to my notes for this. Mr. Mayor and members, as Vice Chairman of the Policy Committee, it's my pleasure to put before you the Dorchester Town Council's medium-term financial strategy and the budget proposal for next year. The strategy and budget have been drawn up by taking into account both matters internal to Dorchester Town Council and therefore largely under our control, and external factors over which we have little influence. But the overall aim in balancing and developing the strategy and budget is one that trims expenditure, balances the books, and puts something aside for local projects, whilst building reserves against uncertain eventualities. Internal matters have been addressed by looking at current internal spending patterns and forecasts of demand. As a result, when the Policy Committee considered the proposed budget, they noted that the combination of changes in income and expenditure for next year will lead to a small revenue budget reduction of 37k on last year, down to 1.129 million. So it's just a small reduction. And the detail of the budget, as I say, Councillor Brown, can be seen on pages 2 to 6 of the budget document sent out with the agenda. The proposed agenda expenditure includes a number of special one-off items recommended by Management Committee, totalling 18,000. So, in effect, the 80,000 has been taken account of by looking at next year's expenditure and income. In addition to this ongoing expenditure budget, a recognition of a range of one-off regular service expenditure items coming up has led to a planned increase in the earmark reserves as shown on page 7 of the document, which have had to be allowed for, so these are earmark reserves for known items coming up. Turning to the external factors, the clerk and his staff had to take an informed view of those factors and trends in the external financial, indeed political environment. And the most likely and significant external changes are summarised as a future cut in council tax support to the Dorchester Town Council, which has to be allowed for, cuts in services forecast by other tiers of local authority, which will lead to demands for a Dorchester Town Council response, future additions to Dorchester Town Council responsibilities which we know are coming, e.g. the Poundbury Great Fields, for example, and limitations which will be likely to be imposed by government on the amount of the council tax growth that we can propose. So it will tie our hands in some respects if we don't have that freedom. So taking into account the internal things, internal and external facets, a financial management approach has been taken to the proposed budget. It gives us a little bit of headroom for a bit of modest spending next year, whilst at the same time bolstering financial security in anticipation of these deteriorating external funding and increasing demands. So that, taken together, has led to the practical decision of how much to raise on our own merits for the precept. So, given the need to prepare for the unexpected and the likely difficulties to be faced with the permitted levels of tax increase in the future, the proposal is to raise the Band D charge by 1.96%. This lies just below the level at which the Minister's outlined proposals would require a referendum, expensive and difficult and time-consuming referendum. So this level of increase of 1.96% works out in the plan fee as 7 pence a week. This has in the past been taken as acceptable to the general public by virtue of the absence of their post-budget objections in the past. So it seems to be an acceptable level of 7 pence. And you're right about the tax base. I mean, Dorchester County Council is fortunate that in addition to achieving our aims through small increases in council tax, the tax base will grow as housing growth in Dorchester continues, and this will bolster our future position, which has allowed us to make a proposal to open a new service growth reserve to set aside £80,000 to help address, if so desired, reductions in services which we expect from other tiers of government. And the full implications of this are shown in the budget on page 1. So, yes, to address your point, it has been taken into account in the bigger picture. So, finally, I'd like to thank the clerk and his staff for their work and recommend the budget to you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Barrett.
Mr. Mayor, I'll come back on that. You've only got to look at the reserve budget and reserves to say that there is an alternative option. What is never explored in this town is an alternative option. It's never been explored in the years that I've been on this council, unfortunately. People are finding it very, very difficult to live at present time. In fact, in the papers this morning, there was the proposal by the Conservative government to reduce further the benefits paid to people. People are at times, and there are people living in Dorchester who are at their wits' end about how to pay these things. So it's not just a case of a small increase, it's a case of whether people can afford it. And the time has come to put a foot back and say, this is going to be considered. If you look at the budget proposed, we have £50,000 operational underspend. We have an increase in the tax base, which would negate the expenditure from reserves of £92,177. And we could maintain the present tax base and its tax balance. Was this ever explored, and should it not be explored, in the interests of the whole of Dorchester, rather than say we continually increase it because of inflation and because we want to do small things? The time has come to consider an alternative, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to support Councillor Barrett. As most of you will know, I have resisted against an increase in council tax since I've been on the council, which is a very short space of time, relatively speaking. And last year, although the policy committee agreed to increase it to 2.5%, when we came to this council meeting, one member suggested to put in an amendment for 3.5%, and it was voted through, I think, by a majority of 1. I voted for 2.5% because I knew we wouldn't get 0. And I, like Mr. Barrett, feel that we have sufficient money. We are saving money, thanks to the office staff mainly, who are looking at their organisation. And I do feel that the people in Dorchester would be pleased if once they didn't have a town council precept. I know many of you here feel that the services you are providing, like free concerts and nothing is free, and we have cut those down, which is good, are welcomed by the people in the town. But they're an awful, I still can't get my head around watering all, it's a small item, watering all the hanging baskets 24/7. I mean, I raised in the first year, why didn't the people in the allotments dispose of their own waste? We're not talking about trees, we're talking about a few weeds. There are many, many areas, and I know the town clerk's looked at many, where we could make savings, and I'm completely against the increase in the council tax, where, of course, I was outraged.
Now, just as a matter of procedure, I think Councillor Jones made a proposition which ought to have been seconded. Is there someone? Yes, it is seconded by Councillor Harris. Thank you. And I'm not quite sure whether Councillor Barrett and Councillor Allen are wishing to oppose that proposal or whether they wish to propose an amendment.
Mr Mayor, if I may have to look on my feet again, I will propose an amendment because I think this should be discussed.
Right.
And it deserves discussion, at least, from members of the public. Once they've seen what happens, then okay. But unless we put it forward, unless it's discussed, it will never happen.
Can I be clear what the amendment is, please?
My amendment would be that we maintain council tax precept as at present and the present council tax balance, and then renegotiate the needs of the budget.
Thank you. Now, in the rules of procedure, we now discuss the amendment. If it's seconded, is it seconded? Yes. Thank you. So, anybody who wishes to speak either for or against the amendment? Councillor Potter.
Thank you. I thoroughly regret the need to put up council tax for the reasons that Councillor Barnes has said. However, I'm conscious that we have a medium-term financial strategy, not just a short-term one. For this year, there might possibly be some merit in what Councillor Barnes says. However, if we go along with his recommendation of no increase, we will be stuck with that level to start from at the beginning of next year. Now, he knows from his work as a district councillor, as I do, and talking to people, members of other councils, that the other tiers of local authority are likely to ask the town council and voluntary organisations to take on more expenditure from their reduced budgets. And it is something that we will need to have sufficient reserves to look at. As well as that, as I say, we have a medium-term financial strategy, and if we don't put anything up now, we will be restricted, one expects, to approximately 2% next year. This is the problem that North Yorkshire got into when they didn't raise the council tax for a number of years, and then discovered that they couldn't go above 2%, and they got into severe financial difficulties. Now, I don't think that's going to happen here, but I would like to guard against it. I would rather have a small increase every year than try and get a big increase in 2 to 3 years' time. Thank you.
Councillor Rennie.
Yeah, some of the words that were said were about doing more things. It actually isn't about doing more things, it's continuing to provide the services that we provide, but also the services that the district and the county provide when they're not going to provide. Only last week, the area partnership had a discussion group to talk about how they could continue to do the work. We're talking about TICs going, we're talking about public toilets, we're talking about a raft of things that the district council, and you know you're a district councillor, you see them come to policy, you see them come to full council. Somebody is going to have to provide the service. You may say, well, why should we? But if the people out there want those services, we have to try to find a way to include them. Also, we're not getting government grants because district council is stopping giving us the government grant percentage by percentage till, I think, is it, town clerk is within 4 years we'll get none whatsoever. And democracy. This year our elections will get paid for through the district council, but following this year's elections we will have to pay for every election because the district council has refused to pay for elections from now on. We will have to pay for every election. So what do you suggest we do? We don't have elections. We're going to have to put some money aside to enabling democracy to take part. We were celebrating democracy with the letter that the Mayor was writing to America and the way forward that we've gone. If we don't put up our tax base small part year on year, we cannot go forward. I don't want to live in a town that starts to go backwards. When I joined this council, money had not been spent and there had to be a lot of money spent on these buildings.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And it was because the council tax had not been put up, the work had not been done on these buildings. We cannot go back to that situation again.
Thank you. Councillor Jones.
Mr. Mayor, yes, I support everything you said. Those are the reasons behind my statements. We're taking a forward position, a defensive forward position, in anticipation mainly of these big unwelcome changes that are going to happen in the very, very near future, we're taking a forward position to counter that, whilst being more economical in our internal service delivery. So it's a two-pronged approach.
And Councillor Ballard?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hear the icon replies from across the room, but I do ask why this wasn't put forward in the first place. I mean, it would appear from our minutes that the main reason we're putting up the council tax is because of management's request for further funds, rather than the statement that they've just made. But I accept what they say. It is a fact that the district council will try to pass further services on, but at the present time, they are passing nothing on. It's been quite funded. It's not happening this year, so people may well say, why raise it this year? But given the explanation that's been provided tonight, I think the public will have more understanding of why this is happening. And I thank my colleagues for it.
Councillor Potter?
Can I just correct one thing? The management committee is actually asking for less money this year than it was last year.
Are you ready to vote? Is there anybody else who wishes to speak? So we are voting on the amendment proposed by Councillor Barrett and seconded by Councillor Allen. Reset should remain at the present level. Those in favour of that amendment, please show. Those against, please show. I declare the amendment defeated. And I think we now come
Mr. Chairman,
to the substantive
Mr.
motion.
Mayor, can we, in the interest of the public, have a recorded vote?
I think we have to be filmed.
Mr. Fisher.
It's been recorded.
Thank you.
Councillor Jones, I think we can proceed perhaps to the substantive motion, can we, now? Do you wish to say anything more?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, I think I reiterate my statements which I've outlined the reasons behind the budget and the approach taken, and therefore I recommend the budget as recommended by Policy Committee 2.
That is seconded by Councillor Harris. Are you ready to vote?
No.
Those in favour of that proposal, please show. Thank you. Those against? I declare that carried. Thank you.